Hey, what's up? What's up, everybody? What's up, jerks? And what's up, the YouTube followers on Carl Steinbeck? We're simulcasting tonight. We're on the Young Jurks YouTube and Facebook and all our social media, but our guests we're also simulcasting on his YouTube. So if you haven't seen me before, I'm Mike Crawford. I'm the host tonight of the Young Jurks. We've got a great guest. I'm wicked excited. In Boston, we say the word wicked. Wicked excited to talk to this guest tonight. He's a former retired judge advocate. Did I say that right? Retired judge advocate with the U.S. Army. He was a lieutenant colonel. He's got a lot of legal experience as a defense attorney, civil, criminal prosecutions. He's defended. He's all about justice. I feel like I know this gentleman already just from our brief conversations, but also from you, the audience, because people were recommending him and they're wicked psyched and they're telling me all as soon as we announced you guys have been messaging me about him and how good of a match we are because we're both about justice. And Carl has spent basically his whole life doing this. So this is exciting. I'm really excited. He's covered the Karen Reed case a little bit, like he did, I believe, one episode in the past. He started to research it more since I reached out, but he's got a great legal mind, and I just want to check in with him tonight and have an interview about who he is and what he thinks about this case, some of the details that we're going to go over. I know he's already got some opinions. He, like I said, he's about justice. He wants to make sure that justice is done the right way. So we're going to have a great conversation tonight. With no further ado, give him a big round of applause in the chats. Yeah, Carl is great. He really is. You see, I'm excited. Let's bring him up. This is, like I said, he's a defense attorney. He's a retired judge advocate with the U.S. Army. He's a lieutenant colonel. He's you know how we always use that word, that phrase that Aiden kind of coined, a serious person. I say he's a very serious person. Let's bring him up. Carl Steinbeck. Welcome to the Young Jurks. How you doing tonight?
Hey, how you doing, Mike? Hi, everybody. It's actually Steinbeck.
So Steinbeck. I said it wrong.
Correction there.
Steinbeck. Make sure. So yeah. What's that guy's name? Glenn Beck. Steinbeck.
Yeah. It's like the author, but no relation. John Steinbeck.
That's right.
Yeah.
Big time author. All right. So Carl Steinbeck. I said that right? Steinbeck.
Close enough. You're good.
This is not a hard name. I've been good with names lately. I used to be known for screwing up everyone's names, but I've been good lately, and this isn't that hard of a one. It's funny how I didn't get that right.
All good.
Carl Steinbeck. I'm going to get it right. So tell us about yourself, because like I said, you've had a very varied career in legal defense, both in state courts, but as well as the military. Tell us about yourself. Tell us about your background.
I don't like talking about myself. Just to summarize real quickly, I mean, I went straight from undergrad at University of Iowa to law school at Drake University, and finished out there in 1990. And after I passed the bar, I went straight into the Army Judge Advocate General Corps. And there I got really awesome experience doing prosecution defense. I rotated to those positions twice within my initial 6 years, a little over 6 years. And then I got out and did private practice in Dallas for about a year and a half. And then I had to go up to take care of some family matters up in Iowa. Did a public defender stint for 4 years, went back to private practice. And then I also was back in the reserves then at that time. And then right before I got deployed to Iraq, I wound up going to back to Texas assistant criminal district attorney briefly before I got then sent over to Iraq. And from Iraq on in 2004, I was on active duty ever since that time to 2020, and I retired then. And during that time, off and on, I'd been also a supervising attorney for the prosecution defense as well. And so I've tried a lot of cases. I also did a little over my 6-year stint in the reserves. I also did a lot of cases in the criminal courts and the civilian courts. So some people may think I've seen comments in the past, well, he only knows military law, but really it's I've done both, and I've done, I think, both about equally. I've handled thousands and thousands of criminal cases, and so I feel I can really get a grasp of things really quickly. And and that's one of the things I did on the Karen Reed case. My brother John got me hooked up on this case out of Florida, the Dan Markel murder case. He was an FSU law professor. Excuse me. And so he even talked me into doing posting some on his YouTube channel, and lo and behold, one thing led to another. So I wound up having my own channel here from almost, I think, 2 years ago, talking mostly about that one case. But I did jump into this Karen Reed case one time, and it was before we found out what the jury had decided on it, from what we're hearing through defense motions, that it was a unanimous verdict on counts 1 and 3 and not on counts 2. And so it was like the day before that was put out in the news there. I just did a live stream, and I said that basically from what I'd been gathering from only looking about, I think it was like less than an hour, 45 minutes or so, but talking to my wife, Leslie, who is a attorney as well. And she was telling me every day, I was like, well, what's the connection to Karen Reed? What's the direct evidence connection to Karen Reed? And she would tell me it was, a summary of what was going on. That she had in the background of her doing her job. And basically there was like never anything there. And so that's why I said, my experience with jurors, and, whether, regardless what state I've practiced in, or in the military system, where you get people from all over the United States that sit on the jury, which we call a panel. It really comes down to common sense and sense of fairness for the jurors. And that's what you really need as a prosecutor. You need to have a sense of justice. You need to be looking for the truth and not have any preconceived ideas. And so what I had seen of that case was that I made the prediction that, there's no way that Karen Reed will ever be found guilty of second-degree murder. I said I didn't even know if she was in fact guilty of something, because I don't know enough about the case, but they haven't presented it, right? So you can have somebody that's guilty, but the legal correct thing to do is find them not guilty because of the fact the state hasn't met their burden of proof, or maybe it's the federal government or the U.S. military. So the bottom line is we have a system of checks and balances. The prosecution must do their job. The defense attorney needs to hold their feet to the fire and make sure they can prove it beyond reasonable doubt. So with that, we've seen what happened since then. And the state right away went back to say they're going to retry Karen Reed within days of this mistrial verdict, without even finding how close it was. They made that decision. So anyway, there's just a lot of steps and decisions. I've looked at this, Mike, that it just really scratches your head. It just makes me really believe that there's a lot of things that are not done by the book. And what it really does is it's really disrespectful to John O'Keefe, because I think what we lose sight of is you're just going after somebody with a vengeance. If you lose sight of the fact that you, as a prosecutor, has to be in the pursuit of justice, not just to win, then things can go sideways on you, and you're not doing justice to the victim and the victim's family, because you need to keep that impartiality in play, and you can't take things personal. So it seems like there's a lot of boundaries crossed, and that just makes it easier for the defense to get a win. So that's why I'm saying it's disrespectful to the prosecution angle to do stuff not above board. So anyway, I can talk more about different things that I've observed as we go on here, Mike. But that's pretty much my intro for now.
Yeah, you mentioned a couple different things that I definitely want to get into. Let's talk about that jury decision where it looks like they might have been unanimous on count 1 and 3, but the judge didn't really follow up. What do you think about that whole situation?
Yeah, I've never seen that before. I've never, it's a little bit more complex in the civilian sector than the military sector, because in the military court martial, for example, you only need 2/3 vote to convict. So guess what? There's never a hung jury. Once they decide you stuck on not guilty, or you stuck on guilty, well, however the vote comes out, you need 2/3 vote to convict. And whether there's an odd number or an even number of jurors, those numbers mathematically can favor the prosecutor or defense. So that's always some gamesmanship that's being done on the jury selection. But in the end, I think what we have here is the prosecution had their evidence to present, and they could not get 12 jurors, mind you, to agree. Not a single one of them, even an alternate. I just saw a video of an alternate juror that also said the prosecution to prove their case. So if the evidence is there, they got to come up with it. They can't will, or try to trick the jury into believing a theory that just belies common sense. So that's what I saw, and so I think that you know, like I said in the one live stream I did on this case, I did not think that they had proven the case. And I didn't think she'd for sure never get convicted of second-degree murder. And I still maintain that position after the more I look at it, the more it's disturbing on a number of different levels.
And the fact that the prosecution is going to try, I mean, we're waiting for the Massachusetts SJC, the Supreme Judicial Court, to decide whether she's going to be tried on that one, second, count 2, or she's going to be tried on all 3 counts again. What do you think about the prosecution going forward, trying to go forward with all 3 counts again?
Even if they have a legal historical underpinning, a statutory decision or case law decision they can base it on, and saying that the verdict was not announced, so basically all that the fact that it was 12-0 not guilty, we're not going to consider that. I mean, from the due process standpoint of things, I think a prosecutor, if you can't convince one juror, not a single one, or even an alternate, and I don't know what the true data of that came out as, but if that's what if we have, like, I think there's 3 jurors and they all came forward and said, yeah, it was all unanimous on counts 1 and 3, not guilty, then the prosecutor's still going after that. It just looks like you're wasting efforts, and you're really going after somebody on a matter of principle rather than actual evidence. And it looks more like I would say a persecution than a prosecution. So I think you have to be able to, as a prosecutor, take your foot off the gas, reassess the evidence. The fact they announced right away they're going to retry her without going back and interviewing the jurors, say, hey, how close were we or weren't we to getting conviction, right? And so I think this whole thing, how it got mucked up with the judge not inquiring, well, on count 1, no one ever asked the jurors, are you on count 1, how close are you? On count 2, count 3, no one thought about that. And so that led to this whole confusion that they're not able to reach a consensus on any of the 3, right? So yeah, that's another head scratcher thing on how things are run. And I'm also not really impressed with how the judge runs the courtroom. And I can talk more about that as we go on, but I'm just not impressed with the justice system there in Massachusetts so far.
Yeah, it's right. This whole trial has really given us a bad look at the Mass judicial system. Definitely. You just mentioned you're talking about the jury. You've done jury trials before. How do you pick a jury? If you're on the defense, what should you kind of be looking for when you're trying to make jury selection? What types of people do you think?
Well, I think that what I use a lot is my instincts. So I do have some preconceived backgrounds of people that I use that I don't think I want to help here now, because I don't want to help the case in Florida. But I just go by gut instincts. I go by my rapport. I go by body language. I go by their answers. And like I said, I do somewhat go by profession. And I do also ask about different life experiences, whatnot. And from my experience, I do have sort of like a selection list of people I think from the defense standpoint, or I don't want to have on there. And from prosecution standpoint, you're not worried about them, right? So, but I do think, like, as a prosecutor, I'm not really so much worried about who I have on a jury, unless somebody comes on and looks like they're really anti something against the state or the government, and they don't seem to be listening and pay attention. I've seen people fall asleep, as jurors and stuff like that. So you really got to. I think a lot of prosecutions sleep on it during the jury selection. They just want to get it over with because they figure, well, anybody's going to find, and believe with what I'm presenting. And so I do think there's really a skill and a lot of effort that needs to go into jury selection. And that's something that I think is probably the Achilles heels for most trial attorneys that aren't really good in their craft. So it's something you really need to develop over time. It's not something you just pick up really fast. So in this particular case, I think for Karen's situation, I would say somebody with like a law enforcement background and stuff like that, definitely you wouldn't want something like that on the jury. But that's pretty obvious to so many people here, because you also have the issue of the appearances of being neutral and having neutral law enforcement and neutral prosecution. So having this be Canton police involved, and also other law enforcement agencies involved in this, and yet you have those people that were in the house and friends with different folks that are witnesses also doing the investigation of different aspects of it. You have sort of a convoluted mess of conflicts that can cross-pollinate and affect the credibility you have as a prosecutor and as the law enforcement pursuing this case. So one of the things I don't understand is like why don't they have the Attorney General's office for Massachusetts stepping down and handling this if you have a conflict with the Norfolk District Attorney's office there? That's what normally happens in most states. Maybe they don't. Maybe they're not equipped in Massachusetts to handle that kind of thing. But or even why don't they ask the U.S. Attorney's office and work in tandem with them? And I understand there's some efforts by the FBI to interview folks, and I think you even confirmed that when we spoke the other day. So I would believe that I do think that there's something that will develop where something's going to happen, and more evidence is going to come to light, and we're going to see more how there was something more shady going on with it than what the defense counsel is saying. There is actually going to be some actual evidence that gets revealed that shows there's something amiss here, and that's why we're not getting the full picture exactly what happened that night with John O'Keefe. Mike, can you hear me?
Oh, it's me. It's me. I'm
I
Mike.
lost sound there.
Oh,
Okay.
it's me. It's me.
Start over.
You're
Please.
fine. I did the mute thing. This is me. It's so funny. I've screwed up twice tonight. My mod earlier said at least you weren't muted when I got your name wrong tonight, and then I mute myself. They're all laughing. The two things I'm known for. You've already seen it, Carl. But anyway, so the whole thing I was saying is basically this has never happened before. You said that. Basically, this is something that we see in this case over and over again. We have this guy, Richard Green, who's an expert on data. In his affidavit, he said he's never seen data collected that doesn't have the verification info from the state. The state is basically all of this keeps happening. We have all these experts coming up and saying, I've never seen this happen before. You said that about the jury. I want to ask about the special prosecutor stuff because you got Aiden Carney, who is being prosecuted right now. He's a journalist. He basically was the first one covering this. He exposed the district attorney on some things. He went after the Massachusetts State Police on this. Because of Aiden's coverage, the DA said, I can't prosecute this. I'm going to have a special prosecutor do it. But at the same time, the same state police officers, Brian Tully being one of them, came to his house and did the investigation and the arrest. So it's like they have these they say one thing on one part of it, but then they actually do exactly what they said they weren't going to do. I mean, does that make sense to you? The whole special prosecutor. Have you ever seen that happen? And then on the Karen Reed side, this second retrial, they picked a special prosecutor. They had someone from the state do the first one, but he didn't seem highly qualified. I believe it was his first murder case. Now they have someone who's in private practice. I mean, what do you think about that? It just seems crazy to me that they don't have anyone in the district attorney's office that could prosecute these cases.
Right. I just think the optics of it are disturbing to me. I don't like special prosecutors in any setting. I believe that you never see a special prosecutor get hired on to do the job and then they stop early before the time's up, before they run out of money. That just doesn't happen. They always run it the full gamut, how much time and money they can get out of it. It doesn't seem like this guy's getting a whole lot of money. He can get $75,000, I guess, from the time he's appointed until June, I think it is. and then he can ask for more. But ultimately, there could be some other issues at play there that would motivate somebody to take this. I don't know why somebody would leave their private practice to handle this case. Okay. You got to shut down your whole office. You got to get rid of your current clients. So something, there's something really motivating him to want to take this case. So, and I understand now he's said that he didn't really look at the whole trial before he decided to agree to take the case. And now think about it. Now you have more investigation going on. They're trying to get more subpoenas of other stuff about Karen Reed. I think her parents' emails or text message or something like that, I recall. So it's like, that is a sign to me that he realizes the case isn't as strong as it was maybe pitched to him as before he signed up to it. So now he's like scrambling, like, well, what about this? What about, well, you guys haven't looked at this? No, you haven't looked at that either. No. So, okay, well, I'm not comfortable going to trial unless we like unturn every stone. Okay. So for example, has all the text messages of everybody in the house that night been discovered?
No.
Okay. Well,
some of them, but not everybody.
Okay. Well, that's something, that should be fleshed out. And as a prosecutor, I would want to, if the defense has some kind of theory, now they know the defense theory, because it's been played out in court. Now that you know the defense theory, what I'd be doing is taking proactive measures to refute that. Okay. Refute that and do some kind of investigation to show that this kind of thing did not happen. And maybe you never really will find the truth because people can do deception like that. But I believe that eventually something will come out where it's going to show what was really going on and who's got what axe to grind against John, because the injuries to me are not consistent with what the state is arguing happened. And they haven't brought in the level of expertise necessary to convince anybody of that. So this Joe Paul guy, I mean, that guy testifying as to what happened, it was all speculation. He wasn't even comfortable saying all that. He doesn't have the requisite experience to say that. So that's what they provide is the John O'Keefe accident reconstruction expert, or in this case, a murder reconstruction expert. It just doesn't add up to anything. And maybe they realized they couldn't find somebody that's credible enough to bring that kind of expertise to the table to support the theory that they have, right? It's all like an internal police type theory, but where's the independent expertise on accident reconstruction? So I just think because you got a police officer from Boston as the person that was murdered, and it happened with folks that are well connected and so connected, not just law enforcement, other people in the community that are influential. I think they really should have called in the state police and the law enforcement sooner, right away from the get-go. For example, the SUV for Karen should not have been brought into the Canton Police Department. They should have just basically secured the crime scene and brought in those folks right away. So
yeah, it's not funny because they said they recused themselves, but then they took the car to the Canton. The Canton police said we recused ourselves because of the conflict of interest, because the brother of the house owner is a Canton police officer, and the other brother is the selectman in the same town of Canton. So the Canton police recused themselves, but then the state police bring the car to the Canton Police Department, which is, I mean, does that make any sense to you? I mean, that's.
Yeah. And there's that video from like a security camera that indicated that that you could conclude that her taillight was not broken on the passenger side, the rear taillight, when after the supposed time of death. So that just also makes one wonder what's really going on. And then you do see the Sally Port video there of the vehicle in the police station, and then you see Trooper Proctor walking behind it, and you can't see what he's doing. But then I also look at what the taillight is made up of, and the polycarbonate strength of that, and if it's supposedly hit John's arm, then we're saying he spun around and flung him 30 feet. I mean, that just makes no sense to me. And so they haven't brought in the requisite level of expertise to explain exactly what would have happened. And the thing is, Mike, you may not ever be able to fully explain how it happened or what happened to kill him. We know hypothermia was a contributing factor, and we know some blunt force trauma was a factor as well. But he also has these scrapes, sort of gouges on his arm, and that that doesn't seem consistent with a motor vehicle impact at all. as somebody that's a pedestrian. So I guess it's another sign that there is reasonable doubt there, and that goes in favor of Karen Reed, because they have not established in anything they've presented to date to directly link that vehicle to his cause of being the cause of death.
Yeah. Going back to the state police, this guy, Brian Tully, who went and arrested Aiden Carney, he's not like, they basically had like a little investigation of him or something, and they closed it, where they still, Michael Proctor is still under investigation for the text messages he sent about Karen Reed. But to me, like, the whole thing that Aiden Carney is criticizing Brian Tully and the investigation of the Karen Reed case, and then Brian Tully shows up at Aiden's house to arrest him and investigate him for witness intimidation. To me, that should be some type of discipline. Do you think that the state police should do something about that, like investigate that aspect, like the conflict of interest, that they sent the same police to investigate Aiden, who was criticizing them, and at the same time, the district attorney says, we're going to have a specially appointed prosecutor for Aiden because of the conflict of interest, because he was making fun of us or whatever. He was reporting on us. What do you think about that?
Mike, that just reeks of, to me, incompetence and maybe revenge, things of that kind of nature, a motive to silence him for speaking out. And I don't really, I've heard of a little bit here and there about what he had, what he's supposedly accused of doing. But when you have somebody that he's criticizing, arresting him, that's pretty much as much of a conflict from the optics perspective as you could get. And so why wouldn't the police officer know better? But you know what? Maybe he's so insulted, feels so insulted by the turtle guy that he wanted to, send a message. But there should be higher ups involved that prevent that kind of thing from happening. There should be, assistant DAs or the district attorney or somebody from the attorneys general involved in supervising something like this. Again, the concern I have is not only justice for John O'Keefe, but also justice to the accused. Justice overall, the big umbrella of justice, is not being served properly when you have this kind of like what can appear to be revenge arrests and prosecutions of that nature, and then bringing in a special prosecutor. Like I say, the special prosecutor, from my experience, they never shut down anything early. They're always going after what the initial person that hired them was supposed to do, and then you have a cloud over the investigation the entire time. Because think about it, the conflicted person is going to hire the person that's not conflicted, and that person is not going to have any loyalties or allegiance to the person that hired them. It doesn't really work that way in the real world. I'm not saying it couldn't work that way. If somebody hired me to do that, I don't care how much money they give me. That's not going to affect what I'm doing.
But they won't hire you. That's the point, because they know that you'll be a straight shooter on it.
Yeah, but even if you're a straight shooter, I mean, a lot of people, I think, from my experience on conflicts and how corruption affects things, a lot of people, what I've seen is they really don't have that much malice per se, but it's just sort of like they just look the other way and they acquiesce to what the real people doing the manipulations want to accomplish. So, but the problem is what happens, it infects so many parts of the case that it's like, how do you ever make it clean? You really can't ever make it clean after that. And that's why I'm saying it affects overall justice for all parties involved.
Definitely. It's been wild to watch all this too. Just like never ending kind of head scratching. Like, well, how can they be doing this? Yeah, you mentioned the 75,000 for Hank Brennan. I mean, we found out that he's getting paid a lot more, actually. That he went through that 75,000 pretty quickly. And I think that you make a good point. Like for him, the longer it goes on, the more he's going to make, right?
Yes, I'm just saying, if I was in those shoes, the reason if he's got a thriving practice, why would you shut down your thriving practice?
Yeah.
You can't handle both at the same time. So basically, I don't know if he has any staff or he's just doing, one man team, but in the end, what he's having to do is basically not taking on new clients and and it can affect him when this case is over and done with. Excuse me. I guess
Absolutely.
unless he gets the publicity from this, he's thinking he could carry on and get new clients right away. But I'm thinking he's not going to like the publicity he's going to get in the end, how this all shakes out.
Yeah, I'm thinking that too. We got some super chats coming in. I want to bring this one up first and foremost because they're the one. There was it's as soon as I announced you were coming on here, I got everybody was so psyched. They were like, "Oh my god, I watched Carl on the Adelson case. I'm so excited you're here." But Mr. Monk's understudy was the one that suggested it. He was like, "You got to get this attorney on." And he says, "Thanks for making this happen, Mike. I'm obsessed with Carl's Adelson coverage." Do you want to talk about that a little bit? Like, what have you been covering on the Adelson case?
Yeah, that's yeah, I guess the thing one of the things I guess thanks to Mr. Monk for linking us up. And I think one of the things that me going from that case to this case now, I think one of the things it shows is something that I've said before a number of different times on my live streams, which is like you can't imagine how much justice can get messed up by prosecutors either like going after somebody just outright trying to railroad somebody and trample over their rights, or you have weak, incompetent prosecutors that just can't get it right for somebody that they should actually absolutely have already had a conviction for, right? So, and then you have the whole gamut in between. And so you can be very frustrated with justice in America in case you follow. Either you see the prosecution, like I say, going one of those two extremes instead of being like, we're just going to do the right thing. We got the experience and leverage, and we're going after people, and we're going to lock them up in short order, in proper order. We're going to do things by the book. So what happens is stuff just gets either, like in these cases, are the opposites, complete opposites. So you have the Adelsons, which have been strung along and not been aggressively prosecuted. So I've been critical of that process, critical of the prosecution, and encouraging and praising them where appropriate. And then you have this case here where the more I'm looking at it, peeling back the layers of onions on it, so to speak, it's like the more I'm like going, what are they doing here? There's like, they're not doing things by the book. They're not doing things in an honorable, respectable fashion. And it's hurting their own case. It looks like they're being very vindictive, and they have some kind of agenda going on instead of the agenda being just, let's see where the evidence leads us, and let's lay it out and take it from there. So, I mean, I've seen some other folks that are tied to Massachusetts. I think I saw one that was a former DA saying there's no way, Karen Reed should have been brought up on second-degree murder charges. And so there's been a number of folks like that, I think, that have come out and made public statements about that. And I can see why. When I looked at this case, I can see totally why that would be the case. But but this is another example, Mike, of how things can get totally sidetracked. People lose focus. It turns into a big circus. And it's like sort of justice is in the background. It's like they lose focus, and it all becomes about personal agendas.
We just found out this week that the prosecution has a bunch of new witnesses, and they dropped a lot of discovery, so much so that Karen Reed's defense team is saying we need more time. We need more time to respond to it. And the judge is like on this deadline. What do you think about, like, this is one of the things that they hired a meteorologist as an expert. It was snowing. I don't know why they need a meteorologist. Do you have any thoughts on that? Like why they would even have that as an expert witness?
Yeah, I can tell you why, because I've actually used one in a drunk driving case before that was successful in me winning when I was a defense counsel. And because what they could talk about is how the weather affected things that nature involving maybe the vehicle that Karen was driving. And maybe they would talk about my expert talked about whether the issue for me on winning the case had to do with whether the engine was running or not. Because if the engine was off, then my client could not be found guilty under law. But if the engine was running, then under law, she would have been guilty. And so what I did is I brought in a meteorologist who said that based on the temperature and based on how long the engine was running, you would show based on the police video that there was exhaust, or the what you see, the like your breath in cold weather, the breath, so to speak, the not the smoke, but the fumes coming out of the tailpipe, because the squad car is directly behind my client's car. So because there was no fumes being shown, the meteorologist concluded that the car was not running. Okay, so that was very critical piece of evidence. So I assume it's something like this that they want to use to try to help set the scene on maybe something about the vehicle, maybe, maybe the you're saying the prosecution wants to use this?
Yeah, the prosecution has hired this
Okay.
weather person.
Okay, so there's something maybe they want to tie into, maybe how they try to argue the acceleration of the vehicle or something like that, or whatnot. Who knows? But I don't want to speculate any more than that. But you can find them relevant in a criminal case, sure.
Definitely. This is one that we were talking about earlier in the green room in our previous conversations about the judge. It's one that always comes up here. What do you think of the judge's behavior and actions? I noticed the last hearing, she smiled at the Commonwealth, but not at the defense. I noticed she hates Jackson, defense attorney, but Karen deserves a free trial. Thank you. Thank you so much for the comment, Marie.
Yeah, I have some of those concerns as well. One of the things that I've noticed is that there's so many, and here's another pet peeve of mine, Mike, because I like to say, no matter which side I've been on, prosecutor, defense, nothing irks me more than seeing a prosecutor trying to cut off the defense of the needs by doing what I call improper objections, things that are relevant. Here's the way I look at it. When I'm prosecuting a case, I'm not worried about making many objections. So I'm like, you know what? I know this case better than their own counsel on the opposing side, and they can throw up whatever they want because I can gun it down because I got the truth on my side, and we will win and prevail. So I don't need to do all these objections and stuff like that. So what happens is you have prosecutors that it could be something as simple as like the defense counsel getting momentum and really embarrassing this witness and showing how they're totally incredible. You can't trust anything they say. So prosecutors will do stuff like that. They get really petty and they get very vindictive like that and try to prevent just simple, normal questions from coming out where it really helps the jury find the truth. And so I see some of that going on with the prosecution. And then I see the judge, and the system is different there where they don't have to state the full basis for the objection. They just say objection. And, to me, it's like they're not making that system doesn't make the prosecution's feet be held to the fire because they don't have to state the basis of the objection. And the defense counsel then has to, sort of live with the ruling without getting to fully explain it. Or sometimes you have the judge saying sustained as to format. It's like, well, what format's acceptable, judge? The judge is not really explaining things. So I think it's just very frustrating to see this happen a lot where it seems like they're not really interested in Karen Reed having her fair day in court, where they're more like trying to block a lot of stuff from coming out that I think is relevant, and it's not objectionable. Some of the stuff could be objectionable, but I just the number of objections they have, I think, and the type of objections they have, it just irks me because I feel like it's all about winning.
Yeah, like they objected to 2 expert witnesses. The judge ended up letting them both in.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's an example right there, Mike. When you got an objection to defense expert, this stuff is reversible error. If the judge this is a very ripe area for appeal. If she wouldn't have ruled in favor of the defense on these experts, any conviction would have been reversed on appeal, right? So it's sort of like, that's the other thing, is that I see many prosecutors, they'll do whatever it takes, whatever tactic it takes to get a win. And it's like they don't even care about whether it will survive an appeal scrutiny or not. They're just wanting to get that win at all costs. And so, and then then what are you going to do? Retry it and then try to do it the proper way the next go round? It just doesn't make any sense. And so, yeah, it's just part of the systemic thing I see in not just in Massachusetts, but many other jurisdictions as well across the United States.
Now, you mentioned the Sallyport video earlier. That got dropped in the middle of the last trial, and the video was inverted.
Yep.
And all of us watching it feel like that it was inverted to cover up the fact that Proctor was near that taillight. They were basically pointing and saying, see, he wasn't near the tail light because it was inverted. You thought, and then instantly the defense figured out it was inverted. And that statement was a lie, that Proctor was standing right next to the tail light, that these guys, these, police officers were hiding and doing something to that. It looks like it. And then more recently, and there was issues like we just had this video expert come on 2 shows in a row. She used to work for Avid, one of the big video companies. She was a product specialist. She knows this stuff. We call her Video Jesus. She's got a Twitter account, Video Jesus. She's a video expert. And she also noticed that like the timestamps and things were out of order and incorrect. She really thinks that this video was edited. She thinks that they tampered with this, the video that they supplied. And then more recently, new video. So the defense was asking for everything way before they even got that Sally Port video. Then that's revealed during the trial. And now the trial's over and they're coming up with new video. Brian Higgins, the ATF officer that was supposedly at that house that night, he said, he made some butt dials, and now it comes out they have video of him at the police department at like 1:30 in the morning, and he said he didn't call anyone that night. He's on the phone. They have new video of him on the phone, apparently, that the new prosecutor gave to the defense just recently. And there's apparently a whole drive. They said, the defense spent $21,000 or something to send a expert witness to the police department to try to pull the video from the Sally Port. And when they got there was no video on the DVR. They've been asking for this video for a long time. And apparently a police officer did download the 24-hour video or whatever it was, how long it is. And it's on a drive, but the defense still doesn't have it. I mean, what do you think about that? That they seem to not have all the discovery at this point.
Like I say, if you have a clean kill case against a defendant, you don't have to resort to all this kind of corrupt type behavior. Okay, that is absolutely such an outrageous thing to have. A videotape that's inverted, and to make it, I mean, why else would you invert it, right? Unless it's trying to hide something. You're trying to hide something. If you're trying to hide something, then guess what? That plays into defense theory, right? So that's the last thing they should want to do is invert the video, right? And then sort of ignore it and not tell them that they inverted it. That is like super, super inflammatory and outrageous conduct that, many courts would just toss the whole conviction, the whole prosecution, dismiss the indictment. And I would say that they probably need to get to the bottom of how this thing happened. How did it get inverted? Who inverted it? Right? Has that been revealed yet?
No, that's
the government has to,
because they had a witness on the stand who was a state police officer, and he's like, I don't know anything about it. And then court ended, right? And it's so funny because we had this great criminal defense attorney on the show reviewing it that night, Mark Betterow. And he was like, the judge is going to lose it tomorrow. The judge is, for the first time, the judge may even throw this out. The judge is going to lose it at the prosecution, and she's going to get to the bottom of. And then the next morning, when the defense is basically trying to do that, she yells at the defense. She doesn't get mad at I was shocked. She didn't yell at the prosecution about the inverted video. She ended up yelling at the defense the next morning, which was, I mean, that's the thing. We had so many moments like that where you think the judge might consider throwing it out. She doesn't. She does just the opposite.
Well, I think what I see from the judge is a bias in favor of the prosecution, a big bias. Even when she says comments, I've seen that, I think, more than once, where she says, better than that, Mr. Jackson. You're really making a personal dig at the defendant's lawyer in front of the jury, and you don't need to do that. That's bad for the defendant to make the jury think that this is a lawyer you can't trust. Because one of the things I say when I'm training other lawyers to become trial attorneys, I say, your trust to the jury is the most important thing you can never lose. If they don't trust you, they don't listen to you. And guess what? Your client may suffer, even though if your client's in the right. So what she's doing is planting little seeds of doubt in the jurors' minds that this Alan Jackson guy is not a trustworthy trial attorney, a defense attorney. And so that to me really is something that, again, just shows that they're not doing stuff by the book. So you can dress down an attorney as a judge, but you really should say that without the jury being there. If she wanted to chew him out and do it when the jury's not there, that's her prerogative if he did something really wrong. But it's like she's not incensed at anything wrong the prosecution does, and she's only finding stuff wrong the defense counsel do. So yeah, that's why I do think it's very obvious she has a bias against defense. And I don't know if it's just all defense counsel that are that way or certain, defense counsel. I know that I had one time a judge that was never defense counsel, and he just hated it when he saw me winning the case, and he would like do stuff to show his visible disdain towards me, and the way he would talk to me and the way he would make rulings. He would know that the evidence had to come in, but what I was trying to get in. But the prosecution, he would actually coach them on what to argue was a better objection. So that kind of thing I thought of when I saw her with this whole thing about this Higgins witness, when she basically stopped her proceedings and made sure his defense counsel could come up there and stand like a couple feet away from him. I thought that is the most bizarre thing I've ever seen about protecting, a witness by a judge who's supposed to be neutral, right? Judges are supposed to be neutral. They're not supposed to have one side in favor of the other. And it just showed a lot of favoritism towards law enforcement that was not becoming of a neutral judge.
Now, the last time the defense basically, I think they only brought maybe 4 witnesses, maybe 5. They did a very much shortened, condensed defense. They brought their best experts out. They brought these ARCA experts. They're basically nationally renowned accident reconstruction guys that the FBI actually hired to look into this. They had them as witnesses, and some of the dog bite expert, a medical doctor, and also the tech expert. Do you think this time the defense should bring up more witnesses and really drill down on their defense, or do you think that they should stick to a shorter defense like they did last time?
I think it's not so much a matter of like how many witnesses you call. I'm more interested in like the quality of the witnesses. And I think, when you have the prosecution that doesn't make sense and what their theory is it belies common sense. My understanding, I've dealt with a lot of violent crimes as a prosecution and defense attorney. And, what they're saying, it doesn't make sense. I'm not, and even the defense might not make total sense. I'm not totally sold on this a dog bite or not. But, if you got an expert that says it's a dog bite, you got to present them, right? That's your job, to zealously represent your client. And so the whole thing about it is that that's reasonable doubt. And so for the prosecution to try to block, experts like that, it's just really a sad commentary on justice. And it's just, I think in the end, what I always try to do is have at least one expert on any case I'm trying on the defense side. Experts really help support my defense, and I've been very successful doing that. And so in this particular case, I think it was also kept from the jury that these were FBI hired accident reconstruction folks. And
Correct.
So that being kept out also is very hurtful to defense, because if you're sitting on the jury, you're going to sit back and go, wait a minute, the FBI is involved in this case. They're looking at this case. Well, maybe there is some truth to what defense is saying, that there was some kind of shady stuff going on in Canton PD. So you don't have to prove it. You just have to raise that as a possibility, right?
Yeah.
There's no way that they have to prove any corruption happened. All they have to do, if you're doing a good job as a defense attorney, keep in mind as a defense counsel, you don't have to present any evidence, right? You could just sit there and do nothing. The state has to prove their case beyond a reasonable doubt. And so the fact that you are calling witnesses, they should be very good, very persuasive, and very compelling. So the state did not have that on their side for the accident reconstruction, and the defense did. I mean, when you compare what the defense had for accident reconstruction versus the prosecution, it's a no-brainer, okay? And then also this I mentioned earlier, but how they brought this out about how John O'Keefe was flung 30 feet in the air. And it's like, how did that happen? There's through some kind of scratches on his arm, and then yet he had blunt force trauma in his head. And anyway, none of that can they explain and walk the dog on how that happened. And so that's an really uphill steep climb for the prosecution. So that right there, when they can't have a credible story on how it happened, right there, that can be reasonable doubt to most jurors. Right. And then you have defense experts that come in and say, no, it's not anything like a vehicle impact type of accident. So that's like pretty compelling. Now the state wanting to do this again. So I just don't get it. And like I say, it just shows that you can be brought up on some pretty flimsy evidence as a defendant if you have the wrong people leading the charge on the prosecution side.
Absolutely. That's what we've been seeing. Sherry D had a comment and a question. And basically, if you're looking at this case right now, we've noticed that there's really kind of two sides on the social media. There's what we call the free Karen Reed contingent, which is large and big. And then there's a smaller contingent, which we call them anti-Karen Reed. They seem to really dislike Karen Reed. Her question is, why do you think it's been so polarizing, this Karen Reed case?
Yeah, I think it has to do with I think that folks that are really the ones that are against Karen Reed, it may have to do with something with the fact that maybe they just don't like something about her personally, whether it's her looks or the way she talks openly in front of the cameras and stuff like that, and maybe the attention she's getting. I mean, there could be any number of reasons why, or maybe it'd be something as simple as like whether it's pro law enforcement. You got a police officer that was murdered, and if the state says that she's guilty, then she's guilty. It could be something that simple. But I'm just saying, I'm coming across this with complete neutral mindset. I don't have any agenda here to, do anything other than speak the truth from my experience. And I go by my instincts. My instincts are normally always leading me to have successful outcomes in court. And that's what I'm trying to bring to the table here. I don't shoot from the hip much. And I go with what I find from many years of experience and my instincts. And so I'm just telling you, my instincts on this one are such that there's a lot of stuff we don't know the truth on, and that hurts the prosecution. And the prosecution, if you have a good case, you don't need to resort to inverted video. You don't need to revert to having police officers that don't conduct themselves in an honorable fashion, that refer to the defendant in all those foul, nasty terms that we heard that agent used. So all that kind of stuff actually disrespects the victim. And so I'm very much against disrespecting the victim as well. So, and I think that, it's sad all the way around. You look at it. I feel bad for the victim's family, and I feel bad for Karen Reed and her family. But like I say, I don't have all the evidence in tow under my grasp right now. All I'm talking to you, Mike, is about what I've seen so far. And the more I see about the case, the more I think that, they should not be going forward on another trial against Karen Reed.
Definitely. And I would add also, to answer that question, Sherry D, is I think a lot of the most venomous people against Karen Reed, if it's not what Carl, what was just said, basically that they're pro law enforcement, some of them are just connected to the cops. Some of them are friends and family of the people actually involved in the case. That's what you have to realize, that there's vested interest in this, and they want a certain outcome for their family members, for their friends.
Well, there also can be hired folks out there that are stone throwers as well. I've seen that in the Florida case I cover, where you can definitely tell that they have paid social media influencers just to like throw rocks and stuff like that. And it's pretty obvious when that kind of stuff happens. So I don't know if that's at play here as well.
I think that is definitely happening here. And if it's not paid, there's other things happening. Like there's this main person that has not liked Aiden Carney, Turtle Boy, for a long time. And she has basically picked up some criminal violations of her own And she is I know for a fact, she is the main one that the district attorney uses to kind of stoke the Twitter flame. She's got her own YouTube show. So there's all kinds of stuff being played with that district attorney. They have definitely gone out and found a group of people to play PR for them. And I don't know if it's paid. I don't think, in a lot of cases, I don't think it's paid. I think it's more like these guys get special favors where they get the information, they get meetings, they get access. They made to feel special. Even for myself, that DA put pressure through that guy, Tully earlier a year ago. A year ago, they were putting pressure on me through that woman. She was telling me that I was going to jail, that I was going to be just like Aiden, witness intimidation. So there's a lot of chicanery going on, and I don't know if it's paid. I tend to think it's just to make them feel special. I really do. These people are. I've never seen anything like it. They're really invested, and a lot of them just hate Aiden Carney or they hate Karen Reed. It's really bizarre.
Well, yeah, I mean, I even got somebody who was trying to go after me, saying I am against victims' rights and stuff like that, and they said on their live stream that I was in the tank for Karen Reed and stuff like that. I'm like, I'm not in the tank for anybody except for justice.
Exactly.
And so I go from supporting the victims in the Florida case. So now I guess you could say by my opinions, you could say I'm supporting Karen Reed, but I'm just speaking the truth as I see it. And like I say, I'm disappointed on what's going on for both sides, all sides, I should say. I'm disappointed in the judge. I'm disappointed in the way the law enforcement is handling it, because John O'Keefe and his family deserve better. And also Karen Reed deserves better. So I just don't see justice being meted out here in a fair fashion. And I think this is going to be going on as well. But I think in the end, it's all going to become unraveled as what's really happened. And so that may be some years down the road. But I think in the end, this stuff is going to all become unraveled. And I think, Karen may be having some lawsuits to go after folks in the government.
That was my
side.
next question. You must be a mind reader. If there are Brady violations, let's say that they prove what a lot of us think, how successful could Karen be in a lawsuit against the state on this if she was found innocent and we found out there was a lot of misconduct from the state police or the DA on this?
Yeah, well, I think it'd have to be something, or it was like a smoking gun indicating corruption, where it's like they hid evidence, they manipulated evidence, and like the inversion thing. If they find out how that actually happened and who was told to do it and whatnot, that's not something that looks like an innocent mistake. When you got, it was just inverted, that's one thing. But how would it be inverted, Mike? When is that ever an issue in anybody that's doing anything with video, right? So if you're doing the inversion, it looks like there was really a concerted effort that took a lot of time and effort to do that. And then you're also going to redate stamp it and whatnot. So it just really feeds into having looking at this with a very suspicious eye of something's not right. And the prosecution has got all these gaping holes in what they're trying to sell as a Loctite story on how this crime happened.
Now, the feds haven't done anything, the U.S. attorney, but we know that there was a grand jury. We know some of these witnesses were also questioned by this federal grand jury. And we know that the federal government actually dumped a bunch of documents. They gave both the defense and the prosecution, through the judge, they gave them all this documentation about their grand jury minutes and all of it. They gave, we don't know that they gave them all their info, but they gave them a good chunk. Have you ever seen that happen before, where the federal government, the federal prosecutor's office gives info to a defendant in a state case?
No, I think that's very odd. I think what they're concerned about also is that they see that they're not done with their investigation, but they see there's something shady going on in how the case is being handled against Karen Reed, and so they feel like they need to step in and try to do the right thing, which I think it is the right thing. And for them to release that kind of information, is really strange, but leads me to believe that they are thinking that Karen's getting railroaded.
Yeah, definitely.
Otherwise, they wouldn't do that, Mike, unless they thought Karen was getting railroaded. Okay.
Yeah. The other side claims that they're doing that because they found nothing and they want everyone to know it, which is I I don't know.
Well, is that how? Correct me if I'm wrong. Is that how all the foul language about Karen was found? Was that through the
Yeah.
federal release?
Yep. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, it was. That's exactly how it came out.
Because normally that would not be found out by a criminal investigation.
Yep.
So that would not be disclosed to personal attacks of law enforcement. So I think it's very they are, I think, trying to pull the thread on this issue that defense is raising, and they're wanting to uncover something. So we'll see where it leads us.
And there was also another case under the same DA with a police officer, a married police officer, and basically a group of police officers had an explorers program in a high school. This is the death actually happened in the same town of Canton, but it was a different town, the high school where the police all met this young woman. So basically, they had like a police like an ROTC type police explorers program in a high school. The young girl basically has sex with a bunch of the police officers. And later on, as she's an adult, she becomes pregnant by one of them. And she ends up dead of, they claim, suicide. The last person to see her was the police officer that had got her pregnant, the married police officer. And he left her to go see his wife in the hospital who was giving birth. They ruled it a suicide. Since then, the federal government, the FBI, has arrested that police officer and charged him with murder. He has basically not even sought bail. He's still in jail. They haven't really even had any hearings. Like, the hearings get delayed. It seems like he's making some kind of deal. That's what a lot of us believe, because the death penalty it's a murder death penalty case. So a lot of us think he's going to make a deal for life in prison to kind of implicate some of the other police officers or the DA. So there's also that in the background with the same district attorney. So a lot of people think that it's all connected. It's all the same. It's really interesting. And that just recently happened, like within the last 6 months, that arrest.
Yeah, I mean, nothing really is shocking these days. There's just so much corruption at so many different levels, and it can encompass a lot of what's supposed to be honorable professions out there serving the public good. And so what you have is folks that just use their position of power and authority, and can trample the rights of a lot of folks. And I know of a similar situation like that. Didn't result in murder, but something about someone being molested by a law enforcement officer for many years as a minor. So very, very disgusting stuff. And so hopefully the FBI will be able to run it to ground on this case here.
I hope so. We just had a good comment. There was another case with the same judge, Canoni. Here it is. Here's the comment. This is a good one. Last week in the Penny McGee trial, the Judge Beverly Canone, had them stating the objection. So now she is asking the prosecution and the defense to state their objections. Do you think that's weird that all of a sudden she changed her procedure now in a different trial?
I mean, it makes it definitely easier for the prosecution when you don't have to state your objection, and you don't have that forth and back of the defense being able to state why they need to ask this question. It's all this like streamlined approach just to get the trial over with. So it's to me not anything I've ever seen before. So the fact that she's going back to this, we'll see what happens in round 2 if there's a trial. But it'd be interesting to see is, will the Supreme Court make a decision on this count 1-3 issue on whether it was considered a unanimous verdict or not before the trial starts. So I wonder.
I'm told they have to. I'm told that the trial can't go on until the SJC makes a decision.
I would think that's the case, but that remains to be seen, I guess, because They do have a trial date, so I guess they'll bounce it at some point if they don't have a decision yet. And the thing is, though, Mike, the Supreme Court is going to announce in advance. We'll have a decision done before the start of the trial date, right? So what'll happen is there won't be any communication. So at a certain point, if they don't, if it's going to be too late to start it because they think the Supreme Court will intervene, then they will have to move it to the right. And hopefully it won't be too far down the road. The good thing about it is at least there's not the issue of Karen Reed's in confinement, in pre-trial confinement right now. So
Exactly. That's thankfully. April 1st is when the retrial is supposed to start. Alan Jackson, one of the defense attorneys for Karen Reed, has just submitted an affidavit to the court saying that the schedule is out of whack and that the defense can't provide a good defense because the prosecution has just dumped all this new evidence on them, all this new discovery, all these new witnesses that they don't have time to prepare. What happens if the judge says, no, you have enough time and we're going forward? What can the defense do anything about that at that point?
the thing is with that is that it depends how much is dumped on them and stuff like that. And normally a judge is going to be deferential to a reasonable request of a new trial date, new deadlines and whatnot. So it all depends on the volume that's handed over. And if I was a judge, I really want to keep the trial date, I would look at to see how much volume we're talking about and make some kind of like internal calculation. Okay, what's reasonable for the defense to ask here? But here, like we're talking about, we also have the Supreme Court issue at play here. So I just don't see this 1 April thing kicking off at that time. And so I would say also that where was this evidence beforehand? Why was this evidence newly discovered? And is it really inculpatory or not? Does it tend to indicate that Karen Reed had some culpability in that? So Deborah Clare saying 1,800 pages of information. Okay, some of that could be just like stuff you flip through that's not really substantive stuff at all. But and I will say, though, that the prosecution and retrials do generally support the prosecution because they can have a chance to find out from jurors. Well, what would have made a difference? What'd you think of the evidence I did present? How should I present it differently? Or what evidence would you have wanted to see? So maybe this is some of that being teed up as well. But I think that in the end, I would guess that any jurors that would have been interviewed by the prosecution would say that there's nothing else you could do to bring an expert to say how this happened to make me believe that her vehicle caused his death.
Yeah, really. There's some comments about Beverly Canone, the judges, how she speaks in court. One of the things she says is, to the prosecution or defense, that she'll say, "I'll let them have it," when she's talking about objections.
Yeah.
Is that normal? Is that how they normally talk?
Yeah, that's not
I'll let 'em have it.
that's not really professional, to have that kind of like it sounds like she's buddy with the prosecution when she says that. That's why she's losing, I think, her the neutrality, the appearance of neutrality that she's supposed to have as a judge. So all these little kind of things, there's more things we could talk about. To me, it just looks like she is really much pro prosecution.
Yeah, that definitely seems that way. Seems like she has a bias.
Well, and the other thing is, you told me, I think, that she was a defense counsel previously for a number of years. So
Yep.
normally you don't see that thing from somebody that's been a defense counsel before.
That's unusual, I would guess. It's very strange.
This thing about after 3K 2E came out, I'm not tracking that. Mike, could you set the scene on that, please?
That's the federal that they're talking about. So when the feds dropped it, that was the previous trial. That's what they called the Fed dump, is the 2E.
Okay.
Yeah, so that they're talking about comparing now to then.
All
and
right.
that she gave them a little more time. She gave them an extra 2 weeks last time.
Yeah, that's not a lot of time. So
Yeah, even that wasn't. Yeah, I think they were complaining back then even about time too. But this time it seems like it's even more like she's got like this schedule. It's like everything's. That's the big thing when I watch her. It seems like she just wants to move ahead. Her big thing is like, let's move this along. Let's
Right.
get this done. But
Well-
then she lets the prosecution challenge defense witnesses. You know what I mean? Like, it's like she wants to have it both ways. Like, you want to move it along, but you let the prosecution waste all this time on fighting defense witnesses.
One of the things she also does is cut off Jackson and says one more question. Well, how
Yeah.
do you know that one more question is enough to really do an effective cross-examination? So, if I was a defense attorney, I'd be pushing back on the judge.
How can you, though? I mean, what's the line, I guess? Because I don't, for me, I'd be all fired up, but I'd probably get myself in trouble. I don't know what the decorum is and what the line is. What is the line on the prosecution pushing back on a judge?
Well, I'm talking not the prosecution, but the defense. So,
The
for
defense,
example,
yes, excuse me. Yeah.
what I do, for example, if the prosecution is objecting to me and I know I need to get this evidence in, I know I have a sufficient legal basis to get that in, and if the judge makes a ruling before I had a chance to argue it, I'll say, excuse me, Your Honor, and then I will go proceed. I need to make an explanation of why it's relevant, and then I'll go into that. And I've always had a judge allow me to do that. And almost every single time they reassess it and reverse it. So I just don't take the first time I'm shot down. I keep pressing the issue.
Another comment about the judge. Is it normal for a judge to repeatedly ask the prosecutor if he wants to object?
Oh, that's you're violating your judicial requirements to be neutral when you ask the prosecutor if he wants to object. You're coaching the prosecutor. You're basically there as a quasi prosecutor when you act that way.
Yeah.
You shouldn't be on the bench acting that way. Period.
Got a lot of comments coming in. Here's one. Carl Steinbeck, man of honor, hugely legal advocate on the Markle case. Thank you for your service. Why do you think the jury was hung? Reasonable doubt is so overwhelming, it doesn't make sense.
Well, keep in mind that I don't know how you could have 15 jurors be confused on and coming and telling the judge we had hung jury on made it sound like everything. I don't understand why the judge or any of the attorneys wouldn't have said, well, which one specifically are an issue? Is it all three or just one? Just throw that all into one gobbledygook of we're all, it's all, we can't agree on anything kind of answer is not sufficient. So I think that if you look at it, it was more of a minor charge. I think it was the second one off the top of my head was that the one that had to do with leaving the scene? So, what can happen is maybe that's the jurors decided that that's how they met the middle ground. Or if there's like one holdout that said, I'm not going to let this Karen Reed walk. And so we got to find her guilty on something. So maybe that was like the brokered middle ground. And so, and that's the one they thought they were hung up on. So sometimes you can have that kind of thing come into play where it's very minor. I think it was a misdemeanor. So I've had juries where I've seen where they come back and it's like, okay, the felonies are definitely not in play, but they sort of like split the baby by coming back with a misdemeanor. And so a lot of people don't want to hold out for days over a misdemeanor. They'll just go ahead and throw in the towel and say, okay, we can agree on a misdemeanor. We're cutting the defendant a big break, so let's just go with a misdemeanor.
Yeah, there was a lot, on that one too. Aiden Carney and some others have interviewed some of the jurors after the fact. And it seemed like the drunk driving was kind of the issue for this first jury and I feel like the defense didn't challenge enough because the blood alcohol was, I can't even say the word extrapolated. Is that the word? It was extrapolated. Yep. So it's kind of weird on that one. And also the drinks, the number of drinks, it seemed like the state police counted the drinks, but there was no real evidence of how much she drank. And so I think the defense probably didn't challenge that part of it enough, the drunk driving part. And I think that's kind of what the jury decided. Like, we don't think she killed him, but we think maybe she was drunk driving. So they want to punish her a little bit. How do you think the defense should kind of do better on the drunk driving aspect on the defense this time, the second time?
Yeah, well, as a prosecutor, I've presented extrapolation of to show intoxication as well, and I would say that what they need to know is any expert that knows this kind of field in toxicology. That's normally a toxicology expert. What they look at is what type of food was consumed, when it was consumed, what kind of beverage was consumed, when and where. So they pretty much lead up to multiple hours before the event in question at play is being decided by the jury. So. And based on that, they can say, based on my expertise, I would say that this person's BAC was, between 0.2 and 0.3 kind of thing. So I think that's very much normal to do. So if I bet the defense didn't come up with their own extrapolation expert, but probably the best way to defend that is to dispute how much she had to drink. But in the end, I think that maybe the defense doesn't want to defend it that strong because they thought that maybe her state of mind would not be such that she was able to be as mindful of trying to commit an act of violence. So yeah, I don't know the specifics on how much she had to drink and eat, but obviously eating has some effect on the absorption of alcohol in your bloodstream. I do know that. And so I would say that, it may be something they don't need to focus in on more, but maybe after this last outcome that maybe they will do that.
It's a good question. If this next jury is hung again, how likely is there to be a third trial? How often do you see that happen?
I've seen that before where the U.S. Attorney's Office went against somebody that actually used to be a boss of mine in the Army. He got prosecuted 3 times, and they're going after him a 4th time. So before he finally wound up copping a plea agreement. So, this I would say they're gonna, are they gonna start making adult common sense decisions after another hung jury? I don't know. I think you're not going to have this jury confusion on instructions happen again. So I would say that I don't think there's going to be another hung juries based on a faulty instruction. If there is a hung jury, it might be because of 1 or 2 holdouts. But I just don't see how you can get the evidence in a better light for the prosecution, because I do not think, from my experience, Mike, I don't think you can have, even though this Joe Paul guy was completely unqualified to make the kind of assessments he sheepishly did, I might add, and he was very much not very sure of himself, right? So even if they get somebody that's like totally convincing, this is what happened, this is exactly why this happened, and the car did this and that, and all these kind of details, nobody can put the pieces back together on this, Mike. So I don't see that happening where they can get better experts. So that's why I don't think there will be probably a hung jury this next go around.
Excellent. I hope not. We had a comment from Lothario. She's a recent guest of the show, too. She's been on all the shows lately. She's also an attorney. She does defense, civil, and criminal. She's phenomenal. Thank you so much for the donation. I would like to get you guys together next time on the show. Could maybe have an attorney panel with Lothario. She does great work. Thank you so much for watching tonight, too. Carl, I imagine, how many defenses have you, how many cases have you seen in the, like you said, you're a prosecutor, you're the military. How many cases have you been involved in, would you say, in your lifetime?
Well, I mean, I don't keep count. I've done so many, handled cases where I'm looking at the file and stuff like that. So, I mean, I would say thousands of cases I've reviewed, and many thousands of cases. And maybe some of those won't result in a trial and whatnot. I would say for trial perspectives, I know I counted them when I was a public defender. I had 48 trials in a 4-year span. And in the military side of the house, I've had probably similar number of that, and to include different kind of juries where it's more of like an administrative proceeding. But for the type of violent crime and stuff like that, I would say that I've had many cases where there was where somebody's looking at a life sentence and I'm either prosecuting or defending it, and those range from both murder to any kind of sexual assault type cases.
I'd say experience matters in this. That's the big thing. I think you have to agree on. This is what kills me about the other side when they go after. It seems like everyone that has experience, like yourself, all of the attorneys, like for the most part, are all thinking Karen's innocent. Like all the ones that have come on the record. I would love to have a debate with someone on your level, Carl, where they take the other side, but there is nobody. Do you know what I mean? Like there's this other attorney, Brother Counsel, who's been covering this on YouTube, and he was trying to find anybody that would debate it that was, like on his level. And he couldn't find them. He had to actually go for some of those people I talked about, the people that have cases against themselves who have become the de facto spokesperson for Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. It's very strange. I've never seen where it's so one-sided, where everybody is just like, I've never seen this before. There's so much reasonable doubt. And yet there's a small sliver that keeps saying that she's so guilty. It's 100%. There's no question about it.
But here to keep in mind, and I guess that the guy you mentioned, the thing is he's talking about a criminal case and he doesn't practice criminal law. So
right.
I guess I prefer to have somebody, on to debate who does actual criminal law cases. But in any event, I can say that in this particular case where you have the prosecution cannot even come up with like a logical, common sense, cogent, coherent type theory on how this actually happened, right? It's really tough, and it's you want to see that as a juror, the prosecution has, and you don't have to actually know the exact nitty gritty details on how each crime happened. You don't have to know exactly what part of the room a murder happened, where stabbing happened. You don't have to know the order of which knife attack happened, and to what part of the body. Blood spatter experts can try to make their best expertise opinions on that. But you as a prosecutor, at least have something where you can hang your hat on. It's like, this is what really most likely happened. And we can show that it was, the criminal actions of this defendant. And so here, when you don't have that, it's just sort of like the injuries don't really make sense like a car. They don't really make sense like anything other than, something else happened that the prosecution is not showing us. Right. So anyway, it's one of these deals where they have to prove their case. So far, they haven't proven it, and it remains to be seen. I think there's so many different moving factors at play here, and when you don't come to the court with clean hands and you're not trustworthy in front of the jury, which I think all these issues the defense can present to this next jury, they can basically get a sense that something's not right here, and one of the things I do, I'll tell you this, every time, whether I've been a prosecution or defense, every single time, especially when I'm a defense attorney, because the prosecution gets to go next, right? I bring up like, I'll have a list, a number of things I say, the prosecution cannot answer this, that, and the other. And the reason they can't is because they know my client's guilt is innocent, right? And every single time when they have a chance to they have the last chance to argue, they will never touch those points. And I argue that if they don't touch them, that they believe I'm telling you the truth as well. So I think that in this particular case, there's a lot of those gold nuggets that Karen Reed's counsel could do to ask probing questions back to prosecution. When you're back up, you're arguing your last chance, because this is my one and only chance to argue in closing. Why hasn't the prosecution come up with this, that, and the other? They can't, because they know they haven't proven their case beyond a reasonable doubt. So,
wow. I'm just reading some of the comments. We got a lot of comments here tonight. People are totally interested in this, big time. Now, you're in the U.S. Army, but someone just mentioned JAG, J-A-G, JAG, because I remember those shows. Do you ever watch those shows? Those naval NCIS and all them?
Not really in NCIS, but I used to watch the JAG show. Yeah, that was somewhat entertaining, believe it or not.
Is it realistic to what you were doing, or is it kind of just TVized where it's not really that realistic?
It was not really that realistic, but it was like realistic enough that it was somewhat entertaining. Like, for example, the lead guy was, he'd be flying a fighter jet in the morning and then, showing up to court in the afternoon. So you don't do that kind of stuff. And it made it look like the whole JAG Corps was, basically like 7 people. So, and meanwhile, it's, almost 1,900 folks.
Wow.
1,900
1900.
attorneys in the Army. Yeah.
And so what type of cases did you, because I know that I saw some of them were like Guantanamo Bay, right? You were involved in some of that stuff?
Yeah, I was there as a couple different hats I wore when I was in Guantanamo. So part of it, I was on the when I was working in the actual uniform as a uh, legal advisor to the folks reviewing the files and making determinations on whether detainees should be, you know, prosecuted, retained, or shipped back to their home nation. And then the second go around, when I was working as a State Department appointee that was part of the Guantanamo closure review that then President Obama had stood up his first day in office. So I was actually working at State Department for the War Crimes Ambassador. So that's how I got tasked to that.
Wow.
So I wasn't actually doing the crimes, court prosecutions. I was doing more legal advisement on national security interest matters.
That's some high level things. Wow, I can't imagine being involved in something like that.
Yeah, it's pretty
You
interesting
have
work.
people's lives in your hands, right? I mean, that's like on both sides, whether it's securing us or, being unfair to other people. It's like it's got to be a tough situation.
One of the things I can, you just made me think of this, Mike, is that one of the things I've said before on the channel a number of times is like the general public has no clue as to how political the criminal law arena is. It's very political, especially in the military, especially when you got something like a law enforcement officer that's been killed. And so you can have like the most outrageous type of politics infecting a case, and it can serve to a lot of times railroad somebody. And I've even talked to a prosecutor that's admitted he's prosecuted somebody that he thought was innocent. So that's how bad the system can be.
And why did he say why, or do you know why?
Well, it's in the military, you have a chain of command. So if the prosecutors don't necessarily have the call on what level to charge somebody, you can only advise the commander. So if the commander wants to pursue a charge that you don't really believe in, but you're supposed to believe in it ethically as an attorney to pursue that. So basically, the attorney just says, "Well, I'll do whatever the command wants," and they're not there to do the proper check and balance for that. So that's basically how somebody gets railroaded. And then, oh, by the way, that same attorney told me the guy got convicted because the defense attorney dropped the ball and went judge alone. If you go judge alone on a politically charged case, every single time the military, a judge will find the person guilty because they don't want to have that on their record. So anyway, a lot of politics and behind the scenes type of things affect courts, whether they're in the state court in Massachusetts or a federal court in Texas, or the court martial in Germany.
How do the public, or how do we just like get that out of there? The politics out of court. How do we stop that from happening? Is there any way?
Well,
Is there anything that you think can be improved to kind of squash that?
I think it's part of human nature that we're flawed, and I think if you don't have the right leadership involved, and you have an easy person to target and take the blame, then that's the most expedient option. And so that's what I see happen many times. The times I've seen corruption rise to a very significant level. I guess I'm not thinking of. I'm trying to think if it's happened on murder cases per se. Not murder, but I think there's a lot of people with agendas out there, and that's one of the things I've said as a defense attorney. It's like whatever the prosecution calls a witness, I say everybody has an agenda. It's my job as a defense attorney to find out what it is and utilize its best interest of my client.
You do God's work.
Anyway, like I say, the agenda could be an innocent agenda. Like, hey, the witness is there to tell the truth. They don't have any axe to grind. They don't have any agendas of any sort. But, the main thing that I look at for cross-examination of a witness, the defense attorney, is motive. And motive, I'm telling you, that's where you hit like gold mine type of information on cross-examination. So that's why I don't like seeing judges saying one more question, because you may have some like really great things to pursue, and as the judge is cutting you off the knees, I mean, that's not good, because maybe there's a huge thing that could sway a jury by the next question, and that was not allowed because it was a couple questions further on down the line of the proposed questioning.
It's a question for you. Some of the witnesses came back and sat in the courtroom audience after they testified.
Yeah, that's normal. Here's what happens is normally you don't want witnesses for the prosecution or defense all sitting there listening to what everybody else says about the same case, and then you can sort of like color your testimony to match it, or what somebody says, you're going to highlight that differently, and maybe you'll change your own testimony from what you said earlier in depositions or in police statements. So what they do is they say, look, unless both sides agree you're not subject to being recalled and you're free to go, those kind of people can come back in the courtroom. But otherwise, it's called sequestering of witnesses. And so what also happens is sometimes there can be gamesmanship being played with that as well, where it's like the victim's family. It's like, does the defense really want to keep the parents of John O'Keefe out if they want to be testifying as to who he was, and a quick summary of the life of him, that so that kind of thing. It's like, if I was a defense counsel, I wouldn't object to the victim's immediate family being in there and whatnot. But when you have prosecutors trying to keep out victims and stuff like that, families and whatnot, it's or I should say defendant's family and stuff like that, sometimes it can be a little bit harsh, I think. So anyway, that is normal across America. And some people say, you may come across some attorneys that say everybody's subject to recall, nobody's ever going to come back in. So that's also something that can happen frequently. And they're doing that normally, maybe because they really believe that, but most attorneys can agree if somebody's not going to be subject to recall or not.
Thank you for the answer on that one. I want to make sure in our chat, I pinned Carl's YouTube as well as his website, steinbecklaw.org, right? .org.
Yep.
So if you want to check out more about Carl, definitely follow him on YouTube. If you're in our YouTube chat right now, make sure you follow him. I want to get him a lot more followers, a lot more subscribers on his YouTube. You're doing pretty well. You've got definitely a following, because people, I could tell when a certain guest, people are, as soon as we announced it, people are like, oh yes. They were very excited to have you here tonight. So I'm psyched that we had this conversation. I hope we can do it again, especially as we go through this retrial. Is there anything that you wanted to discuss about this, or anything else, any other topics, or just even final thoughts you want to leave us with tonight, Carl?
No, I think, I'd be happy to come back and join y'all. And I appreciate this opportunity. I do, like you said in the beginning, I do have a passion for justice. In fact, my website, I need to update that because I'm moving my practice down here to San Antonio, where my wife and I recently moved to. So I would say that, I want to follow more cases. So if you follow other cases like that as well, I could be happy to talk with that as well. So I'm going to keep diving into this information on Karen Reed's case. And I just think that it's going to get, instead of the case looking better and better for the prosecution, I'm thinking, from what I'm seeing so far, I'm thinking there's more and more stuff that defense counsel can point fingers at, to say something's amiss here, something is not adding up. And the way the prosecution is acting, the way the judge is acting, it doesn't lend itself well to getting a conviction that sticks on appeal as well. So there's already, like I say, been a lot of shady stuff going on, a lot of unfair stuff, and it's not going to stop. I don't think it's going to stop. I think, even with this new guy involved here, I think a lot of the witnesses, things have been contaminated or corrupted, or adversely affecting the best interests of the prosecution's side of the house. So In the end, I think all that kind of shady stuff is going to help Karen. So let's see what the Supreme Court does. I think the Supreme Court would make the proper decision by finding there was unanimous verdict, even though the jury didn't come back. If they have they interviewed all 12 jurors? Does the court ever go to that extreme?
No.
Okay, and that might be the key thing that keeps the court from deciding that. And maybe the court will say, well, there was an actual announced verdict, so therefore that doesn't count. But in the end of it, for the prosecution to still be going after her, I think they're just not going to get a conviction for murder too, for sure, in my opinion. So why are they still going after that is beyond belief. But other than the fact that I think like it helps serve as a diversion for something that really else went on behind the scenes that night.
Yeah, I guess that's my final question for you tonight, because I kind of get it, but I don't. Like, it seems like to me, from everything I know, it seems like the FBI and the U.S. U.S. attorney, their target is the district attorney. I'm convinced of that he's the actual target of this. What benefit would to be to him to keep this going against Karen Reed, considering all that? Is there a benefit for him to continue the prosecution if he knows that he's the actual target of the federal investigation? What do you think on that?
Well, I don't know enough about his involvement in anything that's illegal where he would be scared and wanting this to be that kind of diversion I mentioned. But I would say that he didn't make the call to prosecute Karen Reed 2.0. I think he can always say, well, I just assigned it to somebody else and they're making that call, so my hands are washed clean of it. But meanwhile, there's all this publicity. But I think all this publicity is actually hurting justice in Massachusetts. It looks bad. It is bad. It doesn't sound right. Why you doing all this shady stuff, trampling on rights of the victim and accused, and you're supposed to represent justice? So it just doesn't make any sense, other than the fact that there's something else really going on behind the scenes.
I said last question, but the audience comes back with a comment that reminds me of something else about the DA. He made this video that we call the hostage video. And it was basically, before the trial. And it was basically this pre-recorded video basically saying, leave the witnesses alone, and Karen Reed is guilty, and all this. I've never seen anything like it in my life, that DA put this pre-recorded video out. It did not look good for him, in my opinion. A lot of people felt the same way. Have you ever seen that, where a DA actually puts I think it was like a 20-minute statement out, a video that is like pre-recorded? We could play it, actually. Someone wants us to play it, but have you ever seen something like that?
No, I have not. And what he's also, it's one thing if he's telling some folks to not try to intimidate witnesses. Another thing to say, did he actually say that Karen Reed's guilty? Because then you're trying to sway the potential jurors by making those kind of out of court statements.
I don't think if he said the exact words, but it was around that kind of. I would say it's close to the line. Yeah, well, I mean, here's one of the things he says that needs to stop. People are quoting right now. He said, "This is the big thing." He said. So basically, Aiden Carney proved that the head Mass State Police detective that was in charge of the investigation, the one with the text messages, Aiden found all of these pictures and Facebook posts of this guy with the witnesses, and this guy's mother commenting about the family, saying they were the second family, and finding out that the state police officer's sister was friends with the witnesses. So there was all these family connections, and he basically went in a video and said, no, Michael Proctor didn't know the people involved, which is, we know that's false. He did know them. So those are the types of statements he made in that video.
All right. Yeah, so he's commenting on the evidence and stuff like that. This seems really odd, but when you're not doing things by the book, you can get tripped up on a whole lot of stuff, and it sort of snowballs, and it all plays itself into helping the defense. So that's why it's like they don't have the experience, and they don't have the right folks involved in this to do it justice. And so why the state attorney's office is not taking the lead on any prosecution and, deciding this as a neutral, um, somewhat the prosecutor hat on is I guess beyond belief,
You know
but
what
that's what should be
it's
happening.
so funny because I think I know why on that too. And it's what you mentioned earlier, politics. They're all Democrats. And who's the DA that's been in office the longest? And this guy was a state senator. He's been in office for 35 years.
Okay.
He knows every single Democrat, you know. So I think that's a lot of it. I think that it's because they're all Democrats.
Right. But like I say, also somebody in his shoes should be in the position of like, look, I don't want to have anything affecting this case and having a neutral, law enforcement, neutral prosecutor and all that kind of stuff. So push it up to the state attorney's office. They have to have prosecutors on hand, Mike, that can handle these kind of conflicts. They do. And also get the U.S. attorney's office involved. And keep in mind, we have U.S. attorney's offices that will be, if they're not already replaced, will be replaced very soon.
They just replaced them. Yeah,
But
put
they're
a
already
Republican
fired, I
in there.
should say. They're in the process of confirming
Yeah.
all the ones that are replacing them. So
Yeah, I
maybe
don't
they'll
know.
have a more
Yeah.
aggressive approach now.
Yeah, exactly. You would think. Now it seemed like the guy who was here too, the more Democrat who just left, he seemed like he was into it. He seemed like he was. So yeah, either way, I think the feds have not stopped. I think the feds are just. I think they gotta, like you said, I think it's hard to build up to a DA. I think that's their target, but I think that it's harder to make the case against him than some of these other lower level players.
Yeah. So I guess what are you saying the DA would be involved with? You're saying he was
Pay to play, favors, political payback.
okay.
That's. I mean, to me, that's what this all looks like. It all looks like we don't press our guys. Like, you know what I mean? Our guys are not going down. You covered for me 25 years ago, so I'm covering for you today. That's what it feels like to me.
Yeah, but in terms of like, I think their main purpose would be to find out what was done to John O'Keefe.
Definitely.
And so that's why I think that's probably more like more of the second, third order type benefits of pursuing this type of case is like what happened and what are all the different shenanigans going on in the justice system there and in that district.
Absolutely. This has been a great conversation tonight. I'm so glad that you came on, attorney Carl Steinbeck. You're phenomenal. Just really happy that you were here tonight. I pray that the trolls, we call them the trolls, don't give you too hard of a time, because this is something that they do to anyone that jumps in the case that's credible. Every single guest we have on, that you get some troll pushback. I know the attorney, Nan Gallagher, I just mentioned earlier, she was in the chat. She's felt some of that this week when she came out, and she's been doing some shows about Free Karen Reed. So I hope that you're okay with that, because that definitely is gonna always happens. And if it does, just realize it's a sign that you're very effective, and that's why they're doing it.
No, it's already happened. Like I say, really briefly for I don't know a week or so, and then it went away. But like I say, it's I'm not afraid to speak truth about things that are unjust. And like I say, I don't feel like I'm really, I'm not a free Karen Reed person. I'm more like, I'm just calling a spade and calling the shots like they are. And like I say, I think both sides are being misrepresented because of the what the state is doing and what the judge is doing. So I think they're the ones impeding justice more than anything else.
That's right. Thank you so much for being here.
All right, Mike.
Great rest of your weekend, Carl.
All right, you too. Have a great one.
Thank you so much.
Bye-bye.
It's Carl Steinbeck. Big honor to have him on the show tonight. That was so great. Thank you so much for being here. We had a great audience too. We had quite a few viewers tonight, which is good. I noticed he had a good number on his channel and even more on our channel. So a lot of people watching this tonight. Thank you so much. It's good to have a first-time guest putting up those kind of numbers. The second time it's going to be even bigger. Hopefully we get him back on, and maybe we'll get him on with some other attorneys next time as well. That was really good. He's a serious person. Someone says Carl is the best. You guys are the best. I want to thank our audience too, because you guys are the ones who told me about Carl. And once I booked him, you reconfirmed it with me. I knew it was a good quality guest because of you guys. So thank you so much for watching and supporting and all the super chats and all the comments tonight. I thought I had something else to share too. I can't remember, but it's okay. I'm not sure when our next show will be. I always say that. I think I'm going to have another good guest this week. I think I'm working on something. I want to make sure I thank you, Sherry D. Thank you, Carrie. Thank you, Sally Port Secrets. Thank you, Southern Gigi. Thank you, Lissy B. Thank you, Rock Show. Thank you, Boston Brandy, a.k.a. the Cat Lady. I want to thank our moderators, Sarah and Shock and Horror. I want to thank MJ, Jen, Stephanie, Scott McGinnis. Thank you so much to our mod team. And if you haven't, please subscribe on YouTube, especially. We're so close. We're less than, I think 50 away from 40,000 subs on YouTube. I would love to get to 40,000 tonight. That would be amazing. So if you haven't subbed, please do so. Please subscribe on YouTube. Help us get to 40,000 tonight. I want to thank John. I want to thank Audrey. Amor of Alessi. Alessi is a great attorney. Thank you, Laferio. Nan Gallagher, attorney Nan Gallagher. Thank you so much. Thank you, Georgia Rain. Thank you, Kristen from Manhattan. Thank you, Kelly Steffi. Thank you, Mr. Mox, understudy. He's the one who recommended Carl tonight. Thank you so much, Mr. Mox. Thank you, Marie. Thank you to Kelly. Thank you, Magnolia. Magnolia had to make a correction. Says, Brennan is a specially appointed DA, not the same as a special prosecutor. Oh, okay. I mean, it's pretty... an appointed DA is a prosecutor. You know what I mean? So, it's a figure of speech. Usually special prosecutors are on the Fed level. It's true. But it's pretty much the same thing. And yes, it has come out that the last few days he's made over 100,000 so far. Brennan has made more than his 75,000. I think that's also like an incentive for him to have this carry out. One more question I should have probably asked Carl tonight is if he thinks there'll be a split between the DA and Brennan. Because I think you're starting to see the split. You could almost see that Brennan was throwing Lally and the DA's office under the bus or having to defend him. He's got kind of have to make a choice between throwing them under the bus or defending them because they're the ones who held back on all this new discoverable material, right? So that's going to be interesting to see if Brennan actually says, you know what? This isn't worth the money, the ding to my reputation defending this. So it'll be interesting to see if there's a split between this prosecutor, this appointed prosecutor, versus the DA's office. So that's going to be interesting too. I like this one. Meatball Morrissey. Some of the names you guys come up with. I don't even want to say it. Yeah, that's so funny. This is good. This is a good comment. I would venture to say they are registered Democrats but voting Republican. That's how Massachusetts PDs work. Every officer in a police department has donated. Isn't that funny? It's true too. Like Morrissey, I mean, they say he's a Democrat, but is he really? It's just because if you want to get elected in Massachusetts, you have to be a Democrat, basically. So a lot of the Republicans become Democrats to even get elected. It's true. So like a lot of states, it's a one-party state. There's other states that it's all Republicans. And when you have a one-party state, it tends to, no one checks anybody, right? It's not so much which party it is, that the issue is that there's just really one party. That's the real issue. Someone said, how close are we to 40,000? I think we're 50 away. Earlier we were 50 away. I'm going to check. Someone said refresh. Well, let's take a look. It looks like we're still there. Hold on. What do you say? Oh, we're 6 away. We're at 39,994. We need 6 subs. Can we get 6 subs tonight? 6 more subs? Should I stay on until we get to 40? Are you guys going to make me stay on till we should. We did this the other night with Mazza. We stayed on and we got him to 10. Man, we are 6 away. Now I don't know. Maybe I can't go now. Hold on. Let's see. No, we're still at 39,994. How close can we get? If you haven't subbed, maybe I'll have to wait till the next show. Oh, wait, we're 2 away. 998. Oh, come on. Who's going to be the 40,000? Number 40,000. Someone says, yes, stay, please. Like and sub. Let's get to 40. We're 2 away. We're 2 away. Can I double sub? You'd have to go into it. You'd have to create a burner account. Let's see. 40. We just hit it. 40,000. Ring the bell. Thank you, guys. And let's get Carl too. Again, if you haven't subbed to Carl, please subscribe to him too. Hit him up right now. Let's see Carl get some new subs tonight as well. So like I said, it's pinned in our Young Jurks chat right now. It's pinned at the top. Carl's website, if you need any legal advice, especially if you're in the military or you're in the state of Texas, definitely. And also, please subscribe to his YouTube. It's pinned at the top of the chat. Make sure you're following Carl. He's got some great content. You saw how he rolls tonight. If you're just new to him, definitely make sure you sub. Yes, I like to see that. Thank you, Mindy. Mindy just subbed to Carl. And yeah, we're at 40,000. I can't believe it. I'm done. Ding, 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 ding. Yes. You guys made me smile tonight. I think I'm going to shave now. I think I'm going to clean up for the next show because you guys got me to 40,000. It's time to clean up the beard. Maybe I'll even get a haircut, new glasses. I'm actually looking to get a new laptop so I can see the screen better. You know how I'm always squinting at the screen trying to read the super chats? I think I'm going to get a big screen this time. I'm going to celebrate the 40,000. And this is what I'm also liking. I just subbed to Carl. Please, everyone, sub to Carl. You want to see me shave too? Sub to Carl tonight. Everyone's saying that. I subbed to Carl. It's so funny. If you notice, I made my 2 mistakes earlier. Number one, I screwed up his name. It's Steinbeck. That was an easy one. I don't know how I screwed that one up. And then I did the mute thing. But everything else, that was beyond that, it was a perfect show. It's funny. MJ predicted it. She said, at least you didn't put yourself on mute. And then 10 minutes later, I put myself on mute. I love you guys for putting up with my faux pas. I'm human. Perfect. Yeah. Everyone's subbing to Carl. That's what I like right now. Sub to Carl. That's getting me amped up. No, I call him Steinbeck. I guess there's Ernie Bach around here. Ernie Bach is his big name. So I call him Steinbeck. No, it's Steinbeck. Steinbeck. And then I did it again. It's so funny. I'm sorry, folks. I got speech impediments. It's amazing I'm even able to host a show. Yeah, I love you guys, too. I love you ladies. I love you guys. I love everybody. Thank you so much. Carl's link is at the top of the chat. So if you're watching on YouTube, look at the top. Pin comment from Sarah and Shock and Horror at the top of the chat. It's his YouTube and his website pinned at the top. Please follow him. And if you're watching later on, just commenting on YouTube, I'll also pin it at the top of the comments on the YouTube as well. I just want to thank everyone again for supporting us and watching and always having my back. And I just want to check a couple things here real quick before I go. I think we're good. I think I got all the Cash App and the Venmo from last time. I don't think I missed anyone. No, we're good. Excellent. I'm so psyched that we got to 40,000, and I'm glad that you guys are subbing to Carl. Yeah, 50,000 is our next goal. 50,000 are right around the corner. It took us a while. It's funny because we got to like 35 pretty quickly over the last year. That last 5,000 to 40, it took us a while. We had a lot of ups and downs there. All right. I am psyched that we got to 40,000. Thank you so much for subscribing and supporting. And make sure, again, that you sub to Carl tonight. And did I see the super chat from Sherry? I think I posted all the super chats tonight. Is there a new one? Oh, there is a new one. Congrats on 40,000 subs. Thank you so much, Sherry. So I guess some people are brutal in Carl's chat. Probably the trolls. They knew they wouldn't have easy access in our chat with our mods. So they went to Carl's chat. It is what it is. They can say what they want. It just draws more attention to it. Thank you so much, Sherry D. Thank you, everybody. I'm going to head out. Have a great night, everyone. We'll see you soon. Have a great rest of your weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl. If you haven't gone shopping in Massachusetts for food, you better go soon because we got a big storm coming in tonight. I'm going to go look out the window. Someone asked me what the wallpaper behind me. That's not wallpaper. Those are curtains. That's a window. That's a big bay window. I got to put the curtains up because sunlight would be coming through. It just doesn't look good, unfortunately. So those are curtains. But I'm sure if I open those curtains, it might have even started snowing already. So I hope everyone's safe. Be careful. If you can, stay home tomorrow. Enjoy Sunday. Watch the Super Bowl. Hopefully you don't have to go anywhere. I'll see everyone real soon. Have a great night.